The BMW 5 Series has long been the car of choice for successful business people who enjoy a little bit of fun behind the wheel. The trouble is, since the early 2000s, thereabouts, the 5 Series has slowly gotten larger and heavier and lardier, and it's lost some of that driving appeal. But with this G30 generation, especially this LCI, BMW says they've dialed it back. They've brought the BMW 5 Series back to form. So is this still the driver's car that it built its reputation on? Or is it still the big, lardy, slightly unwieldy thing to drive? And would you be better off spending your money with something from Stuttgart? Now, we've tested this car well over 1,000 kilometers over the last 4 days, and we're here to tell you what's what. My name is Ayman I. Abdullah. This is MalaysianMotoring. This is our review of the new BMW 530i M Sport. Now, with this LCI, there have been some revisions to the way it looks. For starters, you now get a larger kidney grille connected in the middle, subsected only by a camera for the 360-degree view. They are now flanked by full LED adaptive headlights with laser light, which can shoot a beam up to 650 meters ahead while reducing the amount of visible light, reflective surfaces and so on, by over 90%. Meaning that these lights are now more efficient than ever before. Because this is an M Sport, obviously you get an M Sport bumper with these black contrasting inserts and very large assertive lower air breathers. You now get active shutter control with this enormous grille with these nice satin fins, which does look quite nice. And because of this facelift, they've now kind of integrated the shut line on the bonnet to then meet this line down here, which then creates this nice U shape that goes all the way around the front. It actually subsects these new LED daytime running lights as well. Overall, the face of this car certainly looks very good, the assertive, masculine, bold face that you'd expect from a 5 Series. Now down the side, the changes are rather minimal. You now get a new set of 19-inch dual-tone alloy wheels wrapped in Bridgestone Turanza T005A tyres with a little star marking these as special tyres covered by BMW's 24-month tyre warranty package. Now, even though this is an M Sport car, as denoted by the little M Sport badge down here, this car does not come with the Shadow Line pack, which means you get a lot of satin chrome around the wing mirrors and even down here on the air breather. Now, I think that this is the way a BMW ought to be specified. I'm not a fan of this gloss black nonsense, and I have to say that against this Phytonic blue, it looks really good. Again, because this is also an M Sport, you do get blue M Sport calipers for the brakes, which again, with the Phytonic blue, looks really good. Overall, the profile of this car looks muscular, like a 5 Series should. Now, down the rear of the 5 Series, the facelift continues. So you now get new tail lights, full LED, of course, with a little bit of a three-dimensional design to them, with a new light signature, and now the brake lights are integrated into that same light signature. Now, I'm not a particular fan of these tail lights. I don't think they set off the rear of the car very well. I actually prefer the pre-facelift, but that is a matter of opinion. Now, because this is an M Sport, as I keep repeating, you get a little bit of contrasting bodywork down at the bottom of the rear bumper, a fake rear diffuser, but a couple of real trapezoidal tailpipes to help let the 2-litre 4-cylinder engine up front breathe. You also get the 530i badging on the side, because obviously you want everyone to know that you got the best 5 Series currently available. But overall, if you ignore the taillights, this car does look rather good. And I cannot emphasize this enough, this Phytonic blue looks really, really good. Now, on the inside of the new 5 Series, it's a lot of the same, a lot of the familiar, but there have been very key changes in order to spruce things up a little bit. For starters, the material in here now is this nice geometric black or dark grey pattern, which looks really nice, and it's offset by this lovely satin silver all over the place, and it does look rather good. All the buttons and switchgear feel very well engineered. Everything is exactly where you'd expect it to be. Everything falls very easily to hand. The steering wheel, being an M Sport unit, is lovely to hold. It's got a nice thick rim to it with paddle shifters on the back. All the buttons are very easily laid out and all very legible. Now, ahead of you, is a 12.3-inch instrument cluster, fully digital of course, and my feelings are a little bit mixed. For starters, the fact that all the information is very easily legible is great. That's fantastic. That's what you'd want from a digital instrument cluster. The only trouble is it's not quite as customizable as what you get in some of the competitors. Mercedes-Benz's MBUX system, for example, allows you to show a lot more information, and it also allows you to change its appearance a little bit more extensively. But for what it's worth, I don't think it deserves quite as much of the crap that motoring journalists have leveled at it. I think it's perfectly serviceable. It's not very flash, but it works. And that's a very BMW thing. What is a bit more flash is the new 12.3-inch display in the middle. This is now upsized from before. It's very clear and it runs BMW OS 7, which means that it's all very snappy. The graphics are very clear, the animations are fantastic, and overall, it's a very easy system to use. You do, of course, get wireless Android Auto as standard. However, Apple CarPlay remains a cost option at the time of filming, which I think is a bit odd. This is a luxury car. It's not exactly cheap, which means certain things ought to be included, no? But that said, the 360-degree camera also deserves a bit of a shout out for being incredibly clear, incredibly usable, and it has so many different functionalities and everything changes to exactly what you'd expect. The sight even adapts based on the situations, like if you're closing into a wall behind you, it changes to a top-down view and so on, which is just really useful. Now, talking about reversing, this car does come with BMW's reverse assistant and the parking assistant package, which will allow you to park the car perpendicular and side along, exit easily as well. And if you find yourself down a narrow road, you can hit the reversing assistant and the car will reverse 25 meters on its own. Now, in addition to all that, of course, as standard, this car comes with 4-zone climate control, as well as a Harman Kardon audio system, which is fantastic. You also get an ambient lighting system and a sunroof to allow a little bit more light into this very dark interior. Now, I'm not a particular fan of this black, but you can get a cognac leather interior as well, but that's specific to the exterior color of choice. So, if you've been listening, if you get the Phytonic Blue, unfortunately, you can only get the black leather seats, which are quite nice. It's offset a little bit, but the cognac looks a little bit better. Now, the thing about a 5 Series is that it is also about the rear as much as it is about the front. So why don't we hop back there for a second? Now, in the back of the 5 Series, things are still quite pleasant. You get this very long base for the seats, which means you get excellent under thigh support. Like I said, you still get 4-zone climate control with separate controls back here, not only for the temperature, but also for the fan speed and even the direction of the air. On top of that, you not only get aircon vents in the middle, but you also get aircon vents in the B pillar, allowing you for greater comfort back here. Now, in terms of the recline angle, it is a little bit upright, but there is plenty of support down the side in order to ensure that you will remain in place. This armrest is also very useful with a couple of cup holders, but there is no storage space in here, which is fine because it would have been quite shallow anyway. You still get the same ambient lighting package. The materials back here are all very nice. You still get the Harman Kardon audio system grills, which look very nice against the black. And you also get manual sun blinds, both for not only the rear window, but also for the rear quarter light, to ensure that if you have children or babies back here who might be sensitive to light, in the ISOFIX mounted seats, they can still be quite comfy and not be bothered by sun. Now, you do get a couple of USB-C ports down there, but you also get a 12-volt socket, which I think is a bit weird. I think C2C or C2 lightning cables are quite common now, but just in case you have one of those Daiso brand car chargers, you can put it back there. You also get a couple of airplane style pockets back here, bottle holders in the doors, and like I said, it is a very comfortable place to be, even on a long journey. There is one matter I'd like to bring up though, and it has to do with the seats. Now, like I said, the seats are very comfortable, there's plenty of space back here, yeah, that's great. Now, the trouble is, if the 500 odd liters of space back there isn't enough, there is an option to fold the seats. They don't fold even one piece, not even a 40-20-40 or even a 60-40 split. These seats are fixed in place, which means your ISOFIX rear mount is up on the deck lid, and that is it. So if you are planning a trip to that Swedish furniture store, you might need to borrow somebody else's car. Now, behind the wheel of the BMW 530i M Sport. So under the bonnet is a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine producing about 225 horsepower and 350 Newton meters of torque. If that's correct, you'll see it on the screen below, and if it's wrong, you'll see the correct one on the screen below. Power goes to the rear wheels via an 8-speed ZF automatic gearbox. Now, the thing about the 5 Series is that, perhaps more than the 3 Series, this is meant to be the ultimate sort of business cruiser. So what it's meant to be is both fun to drive when the mood takes you, but also relatively comfortable and cosseting and relaxing for when the mood isn't necessarily with you to do that. Now, in terms of the comfort, this car is surprisingly good, despite the 19-inch alloy wheels and the suspension, which I've no doubt is probably unique to the fact that this car being an M Sport model. The primary ride in this car is not that bad. It's not quite as floaty, and the primary ride is not quite as soft as what you'd get from the Mercedes-Benz E-Class, but it is definitely not uncomfortable. Now, in terms of the secondary ride, of course, the secondary ride in this car is excellent. After you've hit a pothole or a speed bump or something like that, the body regains stability very quickly, which means that it's very confidence-inspiring, especially out on the motorway. In terms of high-speed refinement, this car is also very well insulated. You get very little wind and road noise at speeds, in fact, below 150 kilometers an hour, and even north of that, the noise intrusion is relatively minimal. As a result, it means that this is a car that you can do quite a lot of miles in without feeling too tired. Couple that to the very comfortable seats, which have side bolster adjustment but not lumbar support, very strangely, and it does mean that you should be able to munch the miles in this thing without issue. Of course, BMWs always have excellent driving positions, naturally, as expected from very focused driver cars that they are, so it means that the steering wheel and the seat can all be set up just ever so nicely. And because this is an M Sport car, as I mentioned earlier, you get a chunky M Sport steering wheel, you get M Sport pedals, and it all works out to make it a very engaging place to sit. Whether you're just cruising to work or back from, in fact, or whether you're on your way for a long holiday, or if you're just pootling around through town traffic, this car is excellent on all accounts. What is also noteworthy is this car's fuel consumption. Now, because I spend quite a lot of time reviewing Mercedes-Benzes and less time reviewing BMWs, it means I do have relatively extensive research and knowledgeability when it comes to fuel consumption on modern Mercedes-Benzes. Now, even with the smaller engine 200 cars, be it a C-Class or an E-Class, you would struggle to get the fuel consumption below 9 liters per 100 kilometers, and even then you'd be driving like a Catholic priest. Now, in this 530i, which naturally is not going to be nearly as frugal as the 530e plug-in hybrid, it is incredibly frugal. Despite a long, or rather 2 long highway journeys, a little bit of congestion, some town driving through urban traffic and so on, over the last 1,300 kilometers, this car has been averaging 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers. A full tank will do you a little bit over 700 kilometers, if not 8 if you're a little bit more relaxed and a bit more careful with how you drive. So what that tells me is that this engine, although powerful, is still relatively easy to run on a day-to-day basis. Because I did have to ask myself, would you buy a 530i if the majority of your driving is just in town, or would you be better served with a 530e M Sport? And it is worth thinking about, because the 530e M Sport is about 50,000 ringgit cheaper than this, which means if the majority of your driving is in town, you would likely be better served by the PHEV, which has a decent all-electric range, would also be able to save you a decent amount of fuel. But it seems that this engine, despite being fully internal combustion, it's still quite frugal. Which means if you want to spend the extra 50 grand and you're concerned about urban fuel consumption, there's very little to worry about. It also means that you can buy this 530i with its extra goodies, like the BMW laser lights, which are absolutely fantastic in the dark, because it'd be kind of shit in the day, and the full ADAS suite of safety systems without a concern. Now, I'd like to touch on that momentarily. As I said, we have done well over 1,000 kilometers in this car, which included 2 long highway runs, about 4 hours each way. And so I managed to extensively test this car's active safety features. Now, they are broadly similar to what we've sampled in the BMW 740 LE. You can check out our review of that in the channel. But this car does lack lane centering assist. It does have lane departure warning, and it does have active intervention for the lane departure warning, but it doesn't center the car, which means it's not quite level 2 semi-autonomous. You still need to keep your hands on the wheel at all times, and you still need to steer at all times too. That said, however, the adaptive cruise control in this car is excellent. Both on the motorway and in town when you're stuck in traffic jams, for example, it does a very good job of estimating distance. It slows down and speeds up in a very natural fashion. And in traffic jams, I'm not actually sure what the allotted time is, but this car does a very good job of still leaving the adaptive cruise control active when the car comes to a halt in a traffic jam. Some other cars require you to press the resume button or tap on the accelerator pedal to resume the adaptive cruise control. This car doesn't seem to need to over a shorter period. It can stay sort of stationary for a bit longer before it requires you to reactivate the system. And as a result, that does mean that the car does more of the work for you, which is very nice. Now, in terms of drawbacks, of course, this car isn't all good news. Now, this car does come with an adaptive suspension system, which is very helpful when you're changing the drive modes because it does help to control what little body lean there is when you are in sport mode. However, the ride is not as comfortable as one might expect for a car in this segment. I suspect the 19-inch alloy wheels are likely to blame, but when this car goes over expansion joints, for example, or very, very rutted roads, the amount of vibration that comes into the cabin is quite noticeable. If you want a floaty ride, you'll definitely be better suited by the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. But that said, that is all I have to complain about in this car. The rest of it is just very, very well thought out. BMW takes a lot of pride in the 5 Series being the businessman's express, as it were. And discerning customers like that are the kind of people who would be very fussy about small details, the tactility of buttons, for example, the placement of switchgear. And in this car, everything is just sorted so nicely. All the buttons fall very easily to hand. They all have a very satisfying sort of motion to them. It's all just really lovely. Would I like level 2 semi-autonomy? Sure, but it's hardly a deal breaker. Given the fact that when I'm on the motorway, I'll be doing most of the steering anyway, it's not really that big of a deal. In terms of the power, yes, you'd be quite right in saying that the BMW 330i actually has more power from the same engine. But at no point have I felt wanting for more performance from this car. It picks up and goes very well, and it is very much a businessman's express. It is a great car to drive. Would I recommend one? Absolutely, especially if you're the kind of person who enjoys the drive as much as the experience of being in the car. However, if you're the kind of person who wants a car that will isolate you from the world around them almost completely, iron out the bumps and try to act as much as a first-class airliner as possible with as little turbulence as possible, then perhaps consider the Mercedes-Benz E300. If you want an absolute driver's car, then consider the Jaguar XE. And if you want something that stands out in the corporate car park, there is, of course, the beguiling Lexus ES. But as I said at the beginning of this review, the BMW 5 Series has long been the de facto choice for successful business people looking for a car that's not only great to look at, not only conveys their success, but is also fun to drive. And I'm happy to report that this G30 LCI certainly hits the brief right on the nose. In any case, that's been our review of the new BMW 530i M Sport. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so you're notified every time we make a new upload. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All the links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care, stay safe, jangan bodoh.